Hello everybody, here we are today and we're going to be doing a season preview over the Carolina Hurricanes. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or the channel. That being said, let's get on into it. So the first talking point for Carolina is whether or not the new guys will be able to get them over the hump. Now, the Hurricanes are a team that's been able to go to the conference final twice in the past few seasons. They ended up losing to the Bruins and then the Panthers, but they were right there to get an opportunity to go back to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since 2006. Ultimately, ended up not working very well for them. Obviously, the series against the Panthers, I think, was a lot more devastating than their loss to the Bruins. The Bruins were an older, more experienced team that really took on a younger side that had a lot of momentum, whereas the Hurricanes are a team that's got more experience, and they took on the Panthers seed that just barely made it to the playoffs. So with every team, you're going to have guys leave, guys come on that are new, and every season you have to figure out what's going to help you put yourself in the best position for the season and going forward. So for the Hurricanes, they ended up making a few moves that were interesting by getting Dmitry Orlov and Michael Bunting. Now, I think those are two relatively big names. I know that Orlov is more known for his Capitals days, and he was obviously a trade for the Bruins where they were hoping to win the Stanley Cup. Didn't work out, but they did trade to get him. And for Bunting, I mean, he plays for the Leafs. He's a guy that is a goal scorer, maybe not a big-time goal scorer, but will get you 20 goals and is a player that you probably don't like if you were a team in the Atlantic having to play him a little bit more. But what are the guys going to be doing and what are they going to provide? So for Orlov, I think he doesn't have to be this top pairing defenseman. I think with a lot of people, they look at him and with the money he's making and saying it's going to be an overpay. It could be an overpay, but it's only 2 years. So it's not the end of the world if they end up paying him a little bit more than what he's worth. I look at it like this. The Hurricanes defensive group, the defensemen that I'm looking at, specifically Burns and Slavin and even their other guys, are just really, really good. So the minutes might not be there to where he's going to be playing, 24, 25 minutes a night, but he's going to get his opportunities. Now, I do worry a little bit that people that look specifically at points will say, oh my gosh, he's having a down year, he's not worth the money. Because, again, I'm kind of looking at this situation too. Guys like Burns, guys like Tony DeAngelo, who they got back, are probably going to get a lot of that power play time. Burns is a guy that obviously isn't afraid to fire the puck. Doesn't do it as much as he used to, I don't think, but did have a pretty impressive playoff run there last season. So there's that. Are they going to throw him out there on the PK bunch? Obviously, I don't know. I mean, I do think they could. But my primary objective for Orlov is to go out there and at full strength, 4-on-4, whatever the case is, just play well and try to help out the team in the way you've been doing it. Just a guy that's been good two-way player, that's been able to go up against top-line competition. Is he going to have to do that all the time in Carolina? I don't think so, which I actually think is a good thing, because if you think about his days in the Capitals, especially before he got traded with how Washington is, it's probably stressful to know that you constantly have to be one of those guys, to be one of those top pairing defensemen, whereas in Carolina, I think they're able to spread the workload a little bit, so Orlov being a little bit older might not have to stress about that as much. I don't know if he's worth the $8 million, but I'm hoping he is, and we will see. As for Bunting, his game is pretty much well known at this point, especially, again, if you were a person that is in the Atlantic Division watching him play. He is a gritty forward that can play with those top guys. He's not afraid to have some pretty unique and fun passes, but he will score you goals as well. Will he take dumb penalties? Yes. Will he get hot-headed and get suspended? Absolutely. But if he stays in check, he can give your team a spark. And come playoff time, where the penalties are called a little bit differently, I do think Bunting could be a guy that really gives his team a little bit of an edge if he's able to score some goals and not take dumb penalties. It's okay if you get away with a minor penalty, that's not a big deal. But if you go out and do something really dumb, especially in, let's say, a conference final, the fans are going to hate you. And he's got a little bit of an extension with this team, or a longer deal. It's like a midterm deal. So you don't want to make the fans angry. Can Bunting and Orlov be those pieces that push them over? Maybe not individually, but I do like these additions. And again, with Orlov, it's not the end of the world if he doesn't pan out for that $8 million, because it's 2 years. Bunting is projected to play on the top line with Aho, so that's good news for him. And I'm hoping that he can get another 20-goal season, maybe 25, 30 goals this year. The second talking point here is whether or not Sebastian Aho will have a career year. Now, Aho was a player that is already I don't want to say all-time great for a Carolina Hurricanes player, but is getting up there on that list. He was going to be a free agent after this season, and then the Hurricanes ended up walking him up to a big 8-year deal. They don't let him hit the open market, and I think that he is really, really big for a franchise that isn't a traditional hockey market, that isn't in an area where you're going to say, oh yeah, North Carolina, that is big for its nightlife. I don't know, I've never been to Raleigh, but I feel like you hear about like Miami, LA, stuff like that. And for the Canes, having a guy like him walked up for the future is so big. And I know a lot of people probably look at his points totals and say, oh my gosh, the money he's making isn't worth what he's going to provide. I disagree. I think that Aho is so much more than his point totals. Now, yes, I think 81 points is the most that he's ever had in a season, but you also have to look at that too and realize that he is one of the few Carolina players that you could reliably expect to score a lot of goals. Carolina, a team that doesn't struggle necessarily to get offensive opportunities, but they really do struggle to finish them. He has 36 goals or more in 3 of his past 4 seasons, and for me, I look at him as a guy that is more useful than just a guy that is on the power play, that is getting a lot of his points there, that's getting a lot of his value. You can use Aho in different situations, and he's going to be a player that I think is a good leader. He may not be the vocal type in the sense where you have those Marchands in the league, but I do view him as one of those pillars for the Hurricanes, and to lose him, I really do think would have been devastating. That's why they got him. That's why they ended up making sure Montreal wouldn't get him. They wanted to make sure that he stayed here. Now, the good news is, with this extension, it looks like he very well could be a Cane for life, and this could be very well the thing that he needs to set a career year off, where he knows that he's financially set up for the future, that he knows he doesn't have to worry about the whole free agency talk, and he can really thrive. Is he going to go all 400 points? I'm not going to say that. Is he going to have a good year where he scores a lot of goals and helps out his team drive offense? Absolutely. I do think that. And I think really for me, I'm just more focused on watching him this season, because I ended up talking about this in his extension video. If you want to go check that out, it's one of my videos from like a month and a half ago, whenever it was that he signed, where he is like 5th or 3rd in multiple categories all time for the team, and has the opportunity to move up to like 3rd or 2nd in different categories as well. So it's one of those situations where I'm so focused on what he's doing this season, because I'm so excited for him and for this franchise that, you know, for a good chunk of the 2010s wasn't doing a whole lot. And I think by getting Aho, this really could have an impact on culture, hockey culture in the Carolinas. And I'm really hoping that Aho is going to be able to spearhead that with a really big year with this new contract being signed. Now, the third talking point is whether or not Teuvo Teravainen can have a bounce back year. Now, Teravainen has been with the Hurricanes for a minute now after being traded over from the Hawks. Unfortunate situation for them, but obviously they had a lot of money that had to be directed certain ways, and Teravainen has been a really good player for the Hurricanes in his time. But he's coming off of a 37-point season after really being a guy that was consistently hitting 60 points in a campaign reliably. 4 of his past 5 seasons prior to this had 60 or more points. I think he had like a 70-some point season sandwiched in there somewhere, and was a guy that you just reliably expected to go in there and give you 20 goals, 40 assists, and he didn't always have to play a bunch of minutes, and that was a really good thing for him. But unfortunately last year, we saw him finish with 12 goals and 25 assists, and I think for him, and looking at him, a big thing that kind of sunk him a little bit, he wasn't getting a lot of opportunities down low. You look back at his heat maps on HockeyViz. Make sure to go check those out if you have subscription, or go subscribe. I don't get paid by them, but I do find a lot of good information on there. And last year it seemed like he struggled to get those opportunities. He was still getting some, but not a lot. So if you're getting 3/4, 3/5 of whatever your opportunities were down low, and you're getting those really good opportunities reliably in seasons past, and you're able to get those 20 goals, that could be a big part of why you're not able to get that 20 goal mark, that 23 goal mark, whatever you're going to end up with. But I will say, one thing that really does concern me with Teravainen last year, he played with guys like Aho. He played with some of their better players, and while things weren't awful, they all ended up playing better with better players or just without him, according to Natural Stat Trick. I don't get paid by them either. Check them out there for free online. And I just think that with one of those situations now with Teravainen, you haven't seen some of those better seasons. I think the past 2 years haven't really been up to the hype that you've kind of come to expect from him. Maybe the season before was, I can't remember. But either way, I'm looking at this and saying that this is a big year for him, because he is a guy that isn't really old, has been there for a minute, and has been a productive guy. So you're hoping, since he's not even 30 yet, that maybe he can continue to go on and do good things for them. I mean, this is also a player that through the 2017-18 season, through the 2021-22 season, had 283 points in 330 games played. And we'll always say points don't mean everything. To almost average a point per game in that span, while being a relatively underrated player in the league in that time, really was good. Hopefully he can get back to his old self because, again, a guy that I followed really since I got back into hockey with my friends, family being huge Hawks fans, watched him a lot, and then we both watched him a lot in Carolina. I want him to succeed, but with the way the situation's set up right now, he didn't really necessarily play a lot of top-end competition and didn't really thrive a lot last year, I don't think. So, I don't know. I'm really hoping for a turnaround, but second year like this, and you start to wonder with some of the guys they brought in if maybe he'll see a big reduction in minutes. So overall, what are my thoughts for the Carolina Hurricanes? Now, personally, I think that they're going to be really good. Again, are they going to go to the playoffs for what, their 6th or 7th season? I think that's probably going to happen. I would agree with that in my opinion. Are they going to win their division title for the 4th time in a row? I'm going to be a little bit more shy on that. I look at Carolina, and while I do admit they're good, their division's brutal. New Jersey is that up-and-coming team that everybody's really excited to see. Last year was incredible for them. This year should probably be really good for them, as some of their young guys that were already good are going to continue to grow. Some of those other guys that are top-end prospects for them are going to go out there and just have another good year. Pittsburgh ended up going and getting a Norris guy, or the Norris winner. It's just one of those situations where I worry about Carolina because they have been there and they have been able to go on a couple of deep runs, but they haven't been able to get over the hump. Do you really expect him to do it when the conference is so good this year? We're going to see a lot of teams ultimately end up losing early in the playoffs in the East, especially because the conference is so deep. I hope Carolina is not one of those teams because, like I said, I've got a soft spot for them because they were the first team to win the Stanley Cup that I can remember when I was a kid, because obviously the walkout season, so they won my kindergarten year just after my kindergarten my kindergarten year ended, so I will always have a special place for them in my heart. However, I'm really not sold on them winning the Stanley Cup this year because, again, at this point, I'm a little shy. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Carolina for this upcoming season? I'd love to hear them down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And everybody, please make sure to stay safe, have a great night, and you go have hockey all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.